Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. And as you know, I have the Bigfoot playlist. And on that playlist, I've been able to put in different cinematic works that I've presented on the subject matter, on the phenomenon of Bigfoot. But also, I've been able to put in my full length versions of the interviews that we conducted for the Survivorman Bigfoot series, which, by the way, that will be coming on there at some point in the future as well. And the reason why these were the full length versions of the interviews was simply because for the show itself, we did, we could only put in so much, so we found our good sound bites and we dropped them into the edit. Well, I've been sitting on this one. This is the full length conversation, really, that I had with Bob Gimlin. And if you don't know that name, Bob is famous in the Bigfoot Sasquatch uh, arena. He was part of the duo, him and another man, Roger Patterson, who are responsible for the very famous footage that you all know and love from pop culture of Bigfoot, that hole, which shows up everywhere. If you notice it, it actually showed up in Thor Ragnarok when Jeff Goldblum as the Grand Master. He turns he does one of those things like he's being Bigfoot. Never mind, I digress. You don't want to hear me talk. You want to hear Bob Gimlin speak. This is my conversation, and I'm warning ahead of time. There's a couple of cuss words in the end there, but this is my conversation that I had privately with Bob Gimlin. Enjoy.
Roger and I we were good friends, but he lived a long ways away from me. So I didn't see Roger that often. And when I got involved with the Bigfoot phenomena, Roger would stop by my place with plaster casts. And of course, anyway, he talked to me about it. And so I was busy. I was working on my regular job plus riding horses on the side,
Wait a
and
minute, back up. You said when you got involved in the Bigfoot phenomenon, so you got involved in it before Roger?
no. Roger already had these casts, and he had testimonials on the little cassette tapes and stuff that he'd play when we'd go riding the hills.
But
Which,
why did he come to you in the first place?
well, we rodeoed together, and of course, if I was going to take colts or young horses, I'll call them young horses because when I say colts, anything's a colt to me until it's 5 years old. But anyway, I'd go past Roger's place. He lived kind of up in the mountains, to ride up in the mountains on a reservation, and I'd stop and visit with him because he had been really sick. And so see how he's doing. He'd say, "Well, Bob, let me throw my horse in a truck with you and go up and ride with you over the weekends," because all I had was weekends. And so then around the campfires, he'd play this little battery powered cassette player and play these testimonials of different people. Well, I didn't have time for that. I wasn't that interested. So then he says, "Well, Bob, I'd like to get you Dr. Ivan Sanderson's book and let you read it in your off time." I said, "Yeah, I'd like that." So then I read Dr. Ivan Sanderson's book, and there was the Bigfoot thing in there. And so I thought, well, these people can't all be wrong because I don't have time to deal with it. But then what really happened at this particular time about the film footage, uh, some people had called Roger, and I say some people, I'm not sure who it was, from California at the little town called Bluff Creek. And they said, and Roger had been down there some before, I don't know who with or what, because wasn't that close to him. And he kind of had knew like a guy named Sel McCoy that worked for the Forest Service, and a couple of other fellows there that was in that area. Plus, he knew the guy at Al Hodson that was at the variety store there. And so I would assume that this message came from the variety store or one of these people that he knew. They called him and said, we're starting to build new logging roads back up in that part of the area. And so we put I thought they said a fuel tank, and which would make sense to me to refuel the road graders and the cats, the big cats that they're pushing the roads through there. And they set it in there on a Friday afternoon on Labor Day weekend. And then when they come back on Tuesday morning, there was three different sets of tracks. Three different sizes of sets of tracks all around this new tank that they'd put in there. And so they, when I say they, whoever called Roger told him the story about this. So Roger comes to me, said, Bob, can you take me to Northern California? I said, well, I don't know, Roger. I had the truck. I had a 1-ton horse van truck to haul horses in. And I said, well, I don't know, Roger. I'm working. I was hot roofing at that time. And I said, well, let me go talk. And I had the cattle. I had horses. I said, I got to get somebody to take care of them. So this is like probably Thursday after Labor Day weekend, and they went to work on Tuesday, And so by the time I got everything lined up to go, it was the last of September. So that's what put us down there in October. So we either got there the last day of September or first day of October, somewhere around that. I couldn't remember. So those 3 weeks, approximately the 3 weeks, we rode through the mountains. Well, it had rained really, really hard up and down the West Coast at that time. And so and what I really wanted to see, I had never seen a track in the dirt or anything. I saw these plaster casts that Roger showed me. So I thought, well, yeah, I'll take him on down there. But I went and talked to my boss, and I said, hey, I'd like to take a couple of weeks off. He said, you're low man on the roster. You'd be the first guy laid off. Well, fall of the year, hot roofing slows way down. So he said, yeah, Bob, go ahead and take, if you want to take a couple of weeks off. Well, when I took Roger down there, I assumed that it would just be like the 15th of October and I'd be heading back. Well, we rode miles and miles and miles and miles, and so then on the 18th was my 36th birthday down there. So I said, I'm going to head back to Yakima, Roger. And he said, well, hey, Bob, can you come back down in November before Thanksgiving and pick me up? I said, no. This truck was pretty hungry on gas. It was just a that little small engine and a 4-speed. So I said, no. I said, Roger, if I leave you down here, you're going to have to come back on your own and get somebody to haul your horse back out because I can't afford to make that trip back down with the fuel consumption. So he said, well, yeah. He said, by golly, then let's go out today and take the pack horse, and we'll go way on back, about 25, 30 miles further back than we had ridden in about a week. And see, this was the 20th day of October. And so we left out that sunshiny afternoon right after lunch, and with this little pack horse loaded down with gear, that we were going to stay all night. We were going to go back there and stay. We were going to stay that night and the next night, and I was going to head on back to Yakima. And so we rode up. We had been up this creek bed before quite a few different times because it was kind of a route that we took out to go on out to where we were going every day when we planned our trip, because we usually made a big loop around and come back at night, And, in October it gets dark about 5 o'clock in the evening, so we usually got back in time to get the horses fed and taken care of. So this time, that particular day, like I said, sunshiny, but all the fall leaves are turning, yellow, red, beautiful colors, the maples and the whatever's in the mountains down there. And so Roger's taking pictures of the scenery and all of this with his camera. He's riding out in front of me on his little horse. And here I'm coming along with a big horse, a big roping horse, and pulling the pack horse, the little pack horse. And so we just going along there, happy as two fat boys in the water, And so we was about 3.5 miles from where we were camped. Come around this. I don't know if you've ever been down there, Les, but in 63, 64, they had a lot of flooding area down there, and the debris and stuff come down out of the mountains and lodged up in this narrow channel with logs and so forth, so it built up the dirt and the soil back of that, and built up quite a pile or it wasn't a pile, it was flat, but it washed down. And the log jam that jammed up in that area had backed up all that debris. So we just come around what was a big downfall root system of a big tree, and it was about 8-10 feet up. So the creek had to reroute and come around that and then come back down. So we come up the creek, Roger in front of me, come around this big downfall tree, and the creature was standing just about 30 or 40 feet on the other side of the creek. And that's when this whole thing happened, you know, and Roger was in front of me. So he's scrambling, his horse is jumping around. I used to say blowing up. And I had to quit saying that because they said, well, how many pieces did it blow up in? So I say, well, it got to acting up. You know, you got to be a little careful with the words you use because cowboy words don't always sit good with the public. I mean, they don't understand what you're talking about. Yeah. That's why I don't say breaking horses anymore. I say training them so other people can ride them. You know, the old phrase would be, you break the horse. Yeah. Well, you don't break them, you teach them. Yeah. And so that's what happened there. And then Roger bails off, the best he could, is getting his camera out of this saddlebag that he had the camera in.
So are you saying that the creature itself was what was responsible for the horse?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, we were just riding along, Roger riding in front of me. And so, you know, this was all happening fast. So I don't know whether the pack horse jerked free from me or I just threw it away. I don't remember, never did remember. And because I was keeping my horse under control. Older horse, more seasoned horse. Well, it was actual rope horse, what he was, a roping horse. And so here Roger is scrambling, and he starts running across the creek. The creek was only about that deep, and probably at the most at that wide spot was 20 foot across. And so Roger's running across the creek trying to get focus, and this creature, and I'm going to call it she now because now I know it was, because at that time I didn't know the difference, you know, what one was supposed to look like. But my first thought was, yeah, these things really do exist. And so it started to leave, just what you've seen. You've probably seen that film footage. Okay, you can see where she just starts to walk away. And then Roger runs across the creek, and there was a little raise in the side of the sandbar there from where the creek had been earlier in the spring and then receded and full, see. So anyway, and he stumbled and fell down like that. And so then he jumps up and runs over to a log and sets down, or gets his elbows down on the log and starts stabilizing himself to get a better picture. And that's why at the beginning of that film, you'll see a lot of static and a lot of him running and stuff. And so I won't jump ahead of what I was going to say, but anyway, so then I'm still sitting over here holding, you know, controlling my horse on the same side where, and his horse took off running back down where we came from, and so did the pack horse. Well, then I was just there, and Roger yells at me, "Bob, can you cover me?" Well, she was going way up around, kind of like in a bow, not in a real bow, but kind of like that. And I thought, well, I can't do anything right here where I'm sitting. So I rode across the creek, and I stepped down off the horse because I didn't know what to expect. You know, I see this huge thing out there, and I thought, well, what if it comes back? I had a rifle, that 30-06 rifle in the saddle scabbard. I pulled that rifle out as I'm stepping off, and I just held it. And I always, you know, I hunted on horses, so I knew exactly, and I always had a deal in the back of my belt here to hook that lead rope to. So when I stepped down, that horse is not going to leave me there. And so I just stepped off, took the rifle, and I stood there not knowing what to expect, whether it was going to come back. And as long as she kept walking away, I just stood there and watched it. Well, then she got quite a little ways up there, and it was almost getting out of sight. And I said, well, Roger, I want to follow her because I wanted to see it again because I thought, I see this thing walking slow, but it's covering a lot of ground quickly. And it was kept moving away from us all the time. And so he said, I ran out of film. And he said, don't leave me here. You know, and then he tells me later why, because there's 3 different sizes of tracks down there, and he thought that the other 2 might be right there. That's what he tells me. Well, I wasn't thinking about the other two or nothing. I just wanted to see this thing again to make sure, to make sure I knew what I was seeing.
Yeah.
Because I still didn't understand. I understood, but it's kind of like, is this really happening? And so then I stayed there, and we caught his horse back up. And I don't even think we messed with the pack horse at all. We may have caught it and tied it up. And then he gets the film out of his saddlebags and gets underneath the poncho and gets it all. So then he said, well, now we'll go the way it went up through the draw, because there was kind of a mountain range that come this way, and one that come that way, and another little creek coming in from this side. And so we went up there probably a quarter of a mile, and we could see the scuffs. By then, it was gravel alongside the creek. It wasn't sand any longer, so we could see the scuffs in the gravel where it would travel. We get up there a ways, and we seen a footprint wet where it stepped in the creek and then stepped across, and it just stepped just on the edge of a rock. So there was half of a footprint there, and then it went right up through the cliffs and the rocks, and I don't really, to this day, know what I was really thinking, except the fact that I wanted to see it again. Yeah. So I said, well, you couldn't take a horse up through there because it was way too steep, but I was in great physical shape at that time. So I said, I'm going to go up through there, Roger, and see if I can see the thing again. He said, no. He said, we got to get back, and it's getting late. It was about 2:30 in the afternoon by then, because it gets dark down there, pretty early in October, or October 20th. End of October. So we knew we had to go all the way back to base camp to get material for casting material. And so he went back down to the base camp and got the casting material and come back and mix that. And then he wanted to take these pictures of everything. And so at that time I was wearing cowboy boots with riding heels, the sharp little heel that comes down about that big. So there was where somebody had sawed a tree off about that high, about 3.5 feet high. And so at that time, I was probably 25, 30 pounds heavier than I am now. And I got up on that, and I jumped off as close to the tracks, which was about that far away from them as it went through there, and landed with one right foot down in there with that riding heel to make an indication of how deep my body weight and stuff would make. And of course I didn't go near as deep as the track. And so then their next thing was, this horse weighed we know what the horse weighed, 1,200 pounds. And with my weight on the horse plus the saddle, we was figuring probably a little over 1,400 pounds. So I rode the horse as close to the tracks as I could without disturbing them. And Roger filmed that. Well, the horse's weight distributed on 4 different feet didn't go as deep as the creature's tracks either. So that indicated that this thing was heavy. But I made a lot of mistakes, Les, because people asked me, how tall do you think it was? And, well, me sitting on a 16-hand horse, I'm 9 feet up, see. So I said, well, probably 6.5 feet, because it's big. What do you think it weighed? I said, well, yeah, I thought a big guy was 350, 360 pounds. I said, probably 350 pounds, because I was thinking about Wilt Chamberlain and those tall guys, and I said, this thing was heavy muscle. But, and they pretty soon, these guys that knew what they were talking about said, oh yeah, I had to weigh a lot more than that, and it's taller than that. Of course, you know what Bill Munns has come up with as far as height? 7'4" 3/4" by measuring all of the foot and everything. Yeah. But anyway, so see, I made quite a few mistakes early in the conversations with different people. We went to Canada in '78 and talked to the Canadian people up there at the Vancouver College up there at British Columbia. And so, you get these kind of deals, and like I was telling him earlier, I did interviews for a long time, Les, and then I quit doing them because we talked about that. I would do an interview, and they'd say, Bob, we'll send you a proof copy, and if there's anything in there you don't like, we'll change it. Well, I wouldn't hear anything from them, and I'd read an article in the paper, and they'd say, Bob Gimlin says this, and Bob Gimlin says that. It would be about accurate about 1/3 of what I said. The rest of it, less, was off beam. So I quit giving interviews. And guess what they started writing about me then? Bob Gimlin lives back in the mountains, and he won't give interviews, so he must be hiding something from somebody. Well, at first it upset me, and then I laughed about it. I thought, hey, I lived in the same place for the last 20 years, worked on the same job in town, but they write anything that would be a sellable item. And so that's what caused me to quit giving interviews. And so when I got to meet you, and I'd heard a lot, I never did get to see your program. I don't get it on my television. So
I'll send you down some DVDs. And yeah, I mean, it's see, I come at this from a different perspective.
yes,
I've had my strange experiences out there, which fueled my curiosity, but I've never seen anything. And so now I've come into this arena of subject matter and meeting all the different characters, all the different players, from Jeff Meldrum and John Bindernagel to now Derek Randalls and Todd Neese and all these different people.
yeah,
And it's a very emotionally charged subject matter.
I can understand that.
People
Yeah.
really live and breathe behind their version
Exactly.
of what it is. And what I am is really, other than a man with a keen interest, is I'm a documentarian. I'm a documentary filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this day and age, Bob, a lot of the shows on television are a lot of crap, and they all do exactly what you just described. They don't stay true to the story at all. They make it up the way they want to make it up, and I mean, even series that are devoted to Bigfoot,
Mm-hmm.
they need to produce.
I'm aware of that.
Right? They've got to make that show, and then they got to turn around next week and make another one, and then another one, and so they need to make things happen. And I'm not like that. I've never been like that. I'm the master of my own domain. I'm the master of my own filmmaking. Nobody owns me or owns my stuff, and nobody tells me what to do.
Good.
So I tell it like it is.
Yeah.
And good or bad, ratings or not ratings, I don't care. This is my story, right? So I'm keeping myself kind of a little bit outside of everybody and everything that's going on. I'm not becoming part of any clique, but it's becoming really interesting to see what's going on. It'll lead me to this question. They've all, I mean, you saw yesterday, if you were there at the end when the panel was speaking. Well, my point was going to be that there was a bunch of men all up on a panel, and a few little debates happened. But for the most part, you could see there was different opinions. I'll just ask it outright. What do you think it is? An ape that walks upright? An ape that's blended with a human? An alien? A special spirit being? I mean, what do you think it is?
Well, Les, that is a ongoing question in my mind, because a fellow calls me from down in Oregon, and he's got a whole different version of all of these people. So I'm not in the middle of the road. I'm just kind of floating here on this. When I saw this creature, and it looked so human-like, the way it moved and walked and everything, I thought, well, it's got to be a cross between some kind of a primate and a human. With the agility that it went through the area that was uneven and stuff, and not even nothing, just smooth. So, but then, there's been so many things and questions for the last 47 years presented to me that it leaves a question mark all the way around. So now I'm thinking, what can they really be? The guy down in Oregon said they were put here to protect human beings thousands of years ago. They will remove them. They're starting to remove them from the ships. He talks about the ships. are starting to remove these Bigfoot off planet Earth and put them back on the planet that they came from.
Starships and stuff.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah. And people say aliens. He said there is no such thing as aliens. He said they're people from other planets. Yeah. They are people, humans, not exactly like us, or because we're come up from a lot of different things, supposedly. So anyway, that's kind of where that is, where I'm at with this, Les. I'm there right at that question, and I listen to all of these things. And of course, Dr. Meldrum is a close friend of mine, so Dr. Benenico, they're all good friends of mine. So I take what they have to say and listen very closely, and I've listened to Ron Moorhead sounds and stuff, and I've heard a few sounds myself, and I've had very little other contact other than our film, some, but I never talked much about it because they talked about the disappearing thing yesterday. Well, that may have happened to me, and I knew what was happening, but I didn't really know what was happening. But anyway, and they say they can disappear like smoke. Well, that may be true, and there's got to be reasons for that. So I don't know, and I'm not a scientist, of course. I'm a cowboy, or I'm a bronc rider.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think about, this is more on the human side of things, what do you think about the fact that everybody has this different perspective and they're all squabbling?
I don't like that. I think that that somebody should hit a level between all of this different opinions, and because anytime there's opposition, there's no gain. You see, that's the way I feel, and
rather than cooperation.
Yep, I like to meet things head on, and if somebody has some really concrete or solid evidence, I'll say solid evidence, if it's different from what I'm thinking, I'll go with the ones that's got the solid evidence.
Well, you know what? This is not to blow smoke up your ass at all, but I mean, the truth of the matter is my birthday is October 20th.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's my birthday. You're October 18th. So
yes, I'm 18.
And everything you're saying is that this is the way I speak to. This is the way I need to do. This is meet things head on.
Yep.
Don't give me no bullshit.
Right.
If you say you saw, a starship come out of the sky and pick up this, okay, great. Tell me about it or show me.
Yeah.
And if you say that, look, it's an ape and nothing more, okay, great. Show me. Show me the evidence. That's the way I've approached all of my filmmaking, and it's ticking some people off. They're all trying now I'm getting the whispers in the ear like, oh, you don't want to talk to him, you don't want to talk to her, you don't want to talk to them. They've got the wrong idea. Come over here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to every camp. I'll be crucified as a result, I suppose. But
well, maybe Les, I don't know. That's just the way I feel. See, and I was crucified early, and I'll go through this right quick. Like, I went through 35 years of bad, really, really bad stuff, and then I regrouped. Dr. Dmitry Benov came from Russia to meet me. He invited me to come to Russia. Well, I couldn't go to Russia. I was working, and so he came to the U.S. to meet me and go. And they were putting on a conference in Willow Creek, California. Al Hodson was manning or coordinating this, and so I went down there, and the reception was, I couldn't actually believe the reception I got down there. So that changed things for me all the way around. I met it as it was presented to me through these people. And from then on, I went ahead and made these conferences just like I made this one here. And not that I'm anything special or anything different. I was just there with Roger when the film was done. So I'm also still getting from the other side of the fence that's still yet that, hey, what's wrong with this guy? And but the 250 or 300 people that I met down there, they were interested in the subject. They believed in what I was presenting there, as the film is authentic, it's real, it's not a man in a suit. And so that got me going again with all of these things that I come to. And I go to a few. I used to go to quite a few, but then I hate flying. I mean, I love to fly, but I don't like the terminals. And so I'm still a kind of a dinosaur when it comes to modern things, Les. I don't understand all of this stuff. And to have to check everything in with computers and stuff, I'm like, throw my saddle in the back of the pickup and let's go. You know, and so
Well,
there.
actually, I heard a joke recently where a guy was talking about, you can whip through the air at 30,000 feet, 500 miles an hour, this big, huge metal tube, it's like the newest space age thing. And the minute you get on the ground and you're standing at the gate, it's like it's 1932 and you're in Istanbul. It's just like they can't connect. It's very frustrating.
Yeah,
We
very.
live with this.
Yeah, I know you guys
all
do.
the time.
See, and I just don't like it. That's why I don't fly much anymore.
Well, I think the thing about you visiting these places, going to these conferences, is look, the brass tacks of you is really simple. Either we won't even bring into this memory. Let's just keep memory out of it for now.
Yeah.
Either you're completely telling the truth and you're relating the story that happened, or you're fabricating it and you're not. It's one or the other.
Exactly.
It's real simple,
Yeah.
And so what I like to do is say, well, if it's fabricated, then whatever. But if he's telling the truth, then holy shit.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Well, see.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it is simple, Les. And the people that say to me, do they exist? I said, well, I know one exists. And I'm not trying to convince you that there's more than one, and I'm really not trying to convince you there's one. I said, I know there's one, and you look at the film footage and make your own decisions. Make your own judgment of what you see in that film. If you think it's a fake, brand it that. If you don't, put an okay on it.
Yeah. That's the deal now. I'm going to keep charging on with my research into this. As I said, unlike a lot of the other TV programs, I don't have to make a TV show. I'm out there trying to film what's happening.
Yeah.
There's a difference to that.
A big difference, yeah.
I'm going to keep that up.
No.
Obviously, I wanted to hear your story, your version of the story. It's really wonderful to get it, and these Max and these guys are great filmmakers. So we've got it caught now really well. I wanted to ask you about what you thought it was, and that was really wonderful the way you said it.
Well,
and this is the thing that I think is the best part is part of what I'm doing now because my show changes as it goes is kind of now saying to everyone who's into the subject, you need to open your minds a bit. You need to start working cooperatively because it's okay if this person thinks that they're fairies. It's okay if this person thinks that they're apes. Either way,
right.
And I read a book where at the very end of the book he basically said, we need to stop asking what it is and ask why is it.
Yes.
Why is it there?
And Dr. Grover Krantz kept saying, we got to have a body. Well, at one time I didn't ever agree with him, but I didn't totally disagree with him because I'm not a scientist, like I said, or have nothing to gain in that at all. But the thing is, you got to have some kind of evidence, solid evidence. And then I hear about a guy shooting one down there and this and that, and I think, well, Dr. Ketchum maybe is going to come up with something, and then pretty soon that kind of settles down like the dust, and you don't hear no more. And the DNA thing, out of Canada, and there's so many different avenues that this goes to, and I still I'm where I was before that all was presented. You see, they didn't do much, and I didn't get anything out of it, and I'd hate to see somebody shoot one because they're human-like creatures. So, and if Mr. Tim is correct about what they are, or even close, then I'd say you better, like the Native Americans keep telling me, leave them alone, Bob, leave them alone. Well, it's pretty hard to leave them alone when there's all of this whole volume of questions out there.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think it comes back to why are they there? And one of the things is that this particular person writing was positing was that what they are is they represent our connection to nature.
That's what they are.
And what's worth exploring is that. you know?
Yeah.
And perhaps through exploring our connection to nature and in essence, trying to get back our connection to nature, which we've lost,
Yes.
we will discover the answer to what this whole Bigfoot phenomenon is about, you know, in that process.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's a good avenue to follow, I guess, because all we have is questions, you know, and so until some of those are answered correctly, the right way, we're never going to know.